The fairy tale crumbled long before the public saw the cracks. We all remember the headlines, the toe-sucking photos, the disastrous interviews. But the story of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, or Fergie as she was affectionately and sometimes derisively known, isn't just about scandal. It's a story of loneliness, of royal expectations colliding with human frailty, and of a marriage that was perhaps doomed from the start. It's a story that continues to unfold even now, as Andrew faces the consequences of his past and their unconventional arrangement finally unravels. Let's rewind to the 1,980 seconds. Sarah Ferguson bursts onto the royal scene, a vibrant, red-haired whirlwind, a stark contrast to the carefully curated image of the royal family. She was seen as a breath of fresh air, a fun-loving commoner who could connect with the public in a way that the more reserved royals couldn't. Andrew, the Queen's second son, a dashing naval officer, seemed like the perfect match. Their wedding was a spectacle, a global event watched by millions, a promise of a modern royal love story. But behind the pomp and circumstance, a different reality was brewing. Andrew's naval career meant long stretches of absence, 40 days a year together, according to some accounts. Imagine trying to build a marriage on that foundation. Fergie, suddenly thrust into the rigid world of royal life, found herself isolated. The palace, with its endless corridors and unspoken rules, became a gilded cage. She was a young woman, full of energy and enthusiasm, but starved of companionship. It's a recipe for disaster, really. And then came Steve Wyatt, a Texan oil tycoon, oozing charm and confidence, everything Andrew wasn't, at least in Fergie's eyes. They met at a British opera festival in Houston, a world away from the stuffy confines of Buckingham Palace. He offered her attention, excitement, a glimpse of a life beyond royal duty. Sources say she was completely smitten, even describing him as the love of her life. Whether that's hyperbole or not, the impact was undeniable. An emotional affair blossomed, a dangerous game played while Andrew was at sea, oblivious to the storm brewing at home. When Andrew found out, the damage was done. The cracks in the marriage, previously hairline fractures, became gaping wounds. A pregnant Sarah, tripping in Mayfair, left to pick herself up while Andrew walked on. A small moment, perhaps, but a telling one. A stark illustration of the chasm that had grown between them. Wyatt eventually moved on, leaving Fergie with the emotional wreckage and a marriage teetering on the brink. But this was just the beginning of the unraveling. The next act involved a character who would push the boundaries of royal scandal to a whole new level, John Bryant. Officially, he was Fergie's financial advisor, brought in to manage the commercial side of her burgeoning literary career. Unofficially, he was something far more, a lover, and that's where the story takes a truly shocking turn. Brian allegedly took up residence at Sunninghill Park, the marital home, a gift from the Queen. Andrew, supposedly unaware of the affair, slept under the same roof as his wife and her lover. The audacity is breathtaking. The most astonishing detail: according to reports, while Andrew slept, Fergie and Brian would sneak into Andrew's study, engaging in intimate acts just steps away from the prince. Lord Charteris, the Queen's former private secretary, upon hearing this, reportedly uttered a single word: vulgar. It's hard to disagree. It's a scene ripped from a scandalous novel, not the biography of a British royal. But it's also a testament to the desperation, the recklessness that had consumed Fergie, and perhaps a reflection of the blind eye Andrew was choosing to turn to the situation. Then came the photographs. The infamous toe-sucking pictures splashed across the tabloid. Fergie and Brian frolicking in the south of France. The image of Brian kissing Fergie's bare foot became an instant symbol of royal disgrace. The palace went into damage control, but the genie was already out of the bottle. This wasn't just a private matter anymore. It was a public humiliation for the entire royal family. Princess Anne, known for her no-nonsense attitude, reportedly delivered a blistering dressing down to Fergie at a private dinner. She criticized her recklessness, her poor judgment, the embarrassment she had brought upon the family. And here's the kicker: no one defended Fergie. Not Andrew, not a single friend or relative. She stood alone, a pariah in her own gilded world. And if reports are to be believed, she played the victim, blaming the media instead of taking responsibility for her own actions. The Queen, too, summoned Fergie for a reckoning. But even then, Fergie seemed unable to grasp the gravity of the situation, acting defensive, almost indignant. It's a baffling display of self-deception, a refusal to acknowledge the consequences of her choices. But let's not paint Fergie as the sole villain in this drama. While her affairs were public and scandalous, Andrew's behavior was equally, if not more, destructive. A former driver claimed Andrew had slept with over a dozen women in the first year of his marriage. While Fergie's indiscretions were splashed across the front pages, Andrew's were whispered about behind palace doors. A double standard, perhaps? Or simply a reflection of the different ways men and women are judged in the public eye? These affairs on both sides eroded the foundation of their marriage. There was no trust, no respect, just a growing sense of resentment and disillusionment. In 1992, Andrew finally called Fergie while she was away and told her they were separated. She was devastated, but here's the most telling detail. He claimed the decision wasn't entirely his. The palace had had enough. Senior figures had lost patience. The marriage was deemed untenable, and the announcement was made. Divorce followed in 1996. But unlike most divorced couples, Andrew and Fergie didn't go their separate ways. They continued to live together at Royal Lodge, a peculiar arrangement that baffled the world. They raised their daughters together, vacationed together, attended events together. They even called themselves the happiest divorced couple. It wasn't a romance, but a strange kind of partnership, forged in the fires of scandal and shared secrets. Some say they understood each other better than anyone else. Others believe they stayed together to avoid exposing uncomfortable truths. Whatever the reason, their unconventional arrangement persisted for decades, but now even that is coming to an end. Andrew, stripped of his royal duties and facing mounting scrutiny over his past, has been ordered to leave Royal Lodge. Fergie's future is uncertain. The long, complicated chapter of their lives is drawing to a close. Their marriage didn't fail because of one mistake. It failed because of a pattern of absence, loneliness, affairs, a lack of accountability, and a sense of entitlement. They behaved as though the rules didn't apply to them, as though consequences were for other people. And now they are finally facing those consequences. The prince is seeking new, separate accommodations. As the headlines blared, but the subtext was deafening. Exile. The gilded cage was being dismantled piece by piece. Andrew, once a celebrated war hero, now a pariah, tainted by his association with Jeffrey Epstein. The details of those relationships, the accusations, the settlements, are a dark cloud hanging over the royal family, a stain that refuses to wash away. But while Fergie's indiscretions played out on the beaches of street tropez, Andrew's alleged behavior was far more insidious, far more damaging. Reports of a steady stream of women, some said to be escorts, parading through Buckingham Palace raised serious questions about security, judgment, and the abuse of power. Women, strangers, with no background checks, no identification, granted access to one of the most sensitive buildings in the country. It's a chilling thought. And what about the staff, the loyal servants tasked with maintaining order and protecting the royal family? Imagine their frustration, their concern, as they witnessed these breaches of protocol, these blatant disregard for the rule. They were forced to navigate the fallout, to cover up the messes, while Andrew carried on as if he were untouchable. It's a story of entitlement, of privilege run amok. Andrew, born into wealth and power, seemed to believe he was above the law, above morality, above basic human decency. He surrounded himself with sycophants and enablers, people who reinforced his sense of invincibility. And for years, he got away with it. But the past always catches up. The truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deeply it's buried. And now, Andrew is facing the consequences of his actions. Stripped of his titles, banished from Royal Lodge, his reputation in tatters. Fergie, too, is facing an uncertain future. Her loyalty to Andrew, her unwavering support, has raised eyebrows. Why has she stood by him, even after everything? Is it genuine affection? A shared sense of survival? Or something more complicated, something we can't quite see? Whatever the reason, Their story is a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most privileged individuals are not immune to the consequences of their choices. That power and wealth do not excuse bad behavior, that eventually the truth will come out. And what of the royal family, the institution that has been rocked by scandal after scandal? How will they recover? How will they restore public trust? The monarchy is a symbol of tradition, of stability, but it must also adapt to the times. It must hold its members accountable, regardless of their status. The saga of Andrew and Fergie is a microcosm of the larger challenges facing the royal family. A need for transparency, for accountability, for a renewed commitment to public service. The fairy tale is over. It's time for a new chapter, one that is grounded in reality, in integrity, and in a genuine desire to serve the people.